everyone, my name is Iasmina and welcome back to my channel. So I've already mentioned in some of my previous videos that my preferred method for planning novels is the beat sheet method by Snyder. And I've also promised that I was going to make a video about that, so this is what that is. So in today's video I am going to introduce you to the beat sheet method from this book, Saved a Cat by Snyder. This is a book on screenwriting. It says it's the last book on screenwriting that you will ever need, but it works just as well for fiction writing. I'm hoping that this might be helpful to some of you who might be new to planning a novel, who might be new to novel writing in general. I want to present this as an option of writing your book, of planning your book. There are many other structures, many other ways. You don't need a method, but this has really helped me, and so I want to share that information because it might help some of you guys as well. And I'll also present to you some different ways to plan your novel in future videos. Okay, so first of all, what is the beat sheet method? So the beat sheet method is a plot structure template. It basically breaks down the 3-act structure into bite-sized pieces. If you know about the 3-act structure, I think this is a more manageable way of writing that. So this template is broken down into 15 steps, so 15 beats. So I will introduce you to each and every one of them. To explain this beat sheet method better, I will use examples from the first Harry Potter movie, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, or Sorcerer's Stone if you're American. If you haven't seen this movie, I'll probably spoil you, so I'm sorry. But I think everyone at this point has seen that movie, so I don't feel too bad. Plus, it's one of my favorite movies and one of my favorite stories ever told, obviously, and I think it fits really well in this beat sheet method. So I'll use points of it to show examples of how you can achieve this. So the first beat is called the opening image. So think of the opening image as the first impression. What kind of tone do you want to set for your book? This can be done in the first sentence, in the first paragraph, in the first page, in the first 10 pages. Usually it's done as soon as possible, so the first paragraph or the first page. The opening image is also an opportunity to introduce the character and give us a snapshot of the character's life. So what does his normal life usually look like? This is of course something that you do in order to contrast with what comes afterwards. So the point here is not to show us the most boring day of this character's life, but a little bit before the inciting incident happens. The second beat is called theme stated. This basically means have the theme of your book or the message you want to convey clearly stated in the first 5 to 10 pages of your book. This can be anything from a side character telling the main character to man up or to try this new thing, or tell them a truth they don't yet understand, and they will understand by the end of the book. The point here is to convey what your story is about. Every story has to be about something. What is the theme of your book? What is the message that you're trying to achieve through telling the story? Your book has to have some kind of message. It doesn't have to be in your face. In fact, it shouldn't be in your face, but it should be there. Beat number 3 is the setup. And this also contains beat number 1 and beat number 2. So the setup is the very beginning of your book. In screenwriting terms, it would happen in the first 10 minutes or from minute 1 to minute 10. In novel format, of course, it would happen in the first, 10 pages, let's say, right? The setup is supposed to show the character's life in the before snapshot. This is also where you introduce most of your main characters, I would say. So to use my Harry Potter example, the entire setup of Harry Potter. In the first minutes of the movie, Dumbledore uses his illuminator to set the entire street of Privet Drive to darkness. He turns off all the street lights. So first we see, something interesting, maybe magic. He then meets a cat on the street who turns into Professor McGonagall. Again, magic. We then see Hagrid on a flying motorcycle coming down and delivering a bundle to his baby Harry with a weird lightning-shaped scar on his face. And then McGonagall says, "This boy will be famous. There won't be a child in the world who doesn't know his name." That is the theme stated right there. In the movie, we then go 10 years in the future and we see Harry waking up in his small bedroom in the cupboard under the stairs, and we see what his life is like with the Dursleys and how abused he is and things like that. So you can see how these things set up the story really, really well. The next beat is called the catalyst, and this is really where the story starts. This is the reason the plot happens. This is the inciting incident. So what happens to your main character that changes his life completely? What happens that sets the story in motion? This is what you have to think about. There has to be some big thing that happens that completely changes the trajectory of your character's life. The catalyst in my Harry Potter example would be Harry finally reading the letter that tells him that he's a wizard and that he's invited to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. That changes Harry's entire life, obviously. The next beat is called the debate, and this is a more personal beat, is a more introspective beat. And this is basically your character's reaction to the catalyst. Something wonderful or terrible has just happened. So what is your character's reaction to this? Are they excited? Are they nervous? Are they terrified? Sometimes change comes with fear. So this is a way to show your character's inner turmoil about this thing that happened. The character is basically asking themselves, should I believe this? Should I stay in my normal life or should I go through the cupboard into this magical world? In the Harry Potter example, after reading his Hogwarts acceptance letter, he stares at Hagrid and he doesn't understand. He says, a wizard? But I can't be a wizard. I'm just Harry. That's kind of the debate there. The next beat is called Break into Two, and that means breaking into Act 2. So up until this point, everything was done in Act 1, and now we move on to Act 2. But before we move on to Act 2, this beat basically shows the character's decision to move on to Act 2. In that short debate they had of whether they should take this opportunity or not, they have made a decision, so show that decision. The next beat is called the B story. And this is a more intermediary beat where we show the subplots of the story, or not all the subplots, but the main subplot of the story. Usually this involves a love subplot, so we introduce the love interest in the story and we introduce the relationship between the main character and the love interest before the relationship blossoms. This is also a place to have a little breather, so you've just moved on to Act 2 and everything is different and everything is terrible or wonderful, but this is a way to have a little break and introduce something else that will also be important, but not as important as the main plot of the story. This is also an opportunity to expand on the theme of your book or the truth of your book. And I think in Harry Potter, this is the moment when Harry chooses his wand. Again, this moment mirrors the theme stated in the beginning of the book, so where McGonagall said that this boy will be famous. Ollivander, the wizard who sells Harry's wand, says, "The wand chooses the wizard, Mr. Potter. It's not always clear why, but I think it is clear that we can expect great things from you. After all, he who must not be named did great things. Terrible, but great." The next beat is my favorite beat, and it is called Fun and Games. Coincidentally, this is also the longest beat you will have. So word count wise, this should probably be the longest part you will have. This is basically the promise of the premise, right? The premise in Harry Potter is boy goes to wizarding school, and this is the part where we see boy going to wizarding school. We see all of the classes that Harry takes, all of the magic, all of the teachers, all of the characters, all of the fun stuff. Before all the bad things happen. This is that part. Then we have the midpoint of the story. Now, depending on the kind of story you're telling, this can either be a great moment, or it can be an awful moment. So if you're telling a not so nice story, this is the moment where things start to go down for the character. He's made a mistake or something else has happened and things are not looking as great as they were in the last beat. On the opposite side, if you're telling a more optimistic story, this is the point where the character feels at his highest, He's a genius, he solved all of his issues, he is fantastic. I would say the midpoint in Harry Potter is that entire section where Harry gets his invisibility cloak and they start investigating the Forbidden Corridor. They find Fluffy. At this point they think Snape is hiding something, as well as Harry winning his first Quidditch match, but again, they think Snape is up to something. So I think that whole entire section in Harry Potter would represent the midpoint. The next beat is called Bad Guys Close In. So this is where your character has started on this journey, has started the fight. There's a moment there where they feel like they will lose this. The bad guys are closing in. There's fear, there's jealousy. They think that everything they've ever known is false. In Harry Potter, I think this is the part where they go through the trapdoor and they start going through all of the challenges. And the challenges get the better of them. Ron gets injured at the chess game and Hermione stays to help him. And Harry is meant to go face Quirrell alone. The next beat is called All Is Lost. As the title suggests, this is the part where the character feels like they've lost everything. Everything they've accomplished so far, everything they've been fighting for, whatever it is, they feel like this is it, they've lost it, there is no point going on. In Harry Potter, this would be Harry facing Voldemort for the first time. And Voldemort extracting the Philosopher's Stone from Harry's hand, and he realizes that he's about to die and there's nothing he can do about it. Following up to that, the next point is called Dark Night of the Soul. So this is when the worst thing happens. This is when Harry fights Voldemort and he faints. It can be your main character losing a friend, it can be the main character losing the fight that he's been fighting or the item that he's been trying to recover. His goal has died. His dream has died. It doesn't have to be a literal death, it can be a metaphorical one. Then we have break into 3, so breaking into Act 3. So at this point, Act 2 is done, the worst has happened, and now it's time for the final part of the story, the resolution. This is where, if the battle seems lost, Gandalf comes in to save the day with his army that he's promised a bit before, but then he never mentioned again. This is basically where your main character, thanks to a fresh new idea, or thanks to help from an item or another character, your main character wins the fight that he thought he had lost. In Harry Potter, Harry touches Voldemort and he disintegrates into bits because he cannot stand love, and love is the greatest weapon. But he has this last minute idea and he manages to win the fight. Our second to last beat is called the finale, so this is the resolution of Act 3. This is where everything ties up, all the loose ends tie up. The evil has now been defeated and everyone rounds up again and talks and discusses everything. And any questions that we may have are now answered. Gryffindor wins the House Cup despite everything because Dumbledore is biased. And then the last beat of our story is the final image. And this is supposed to be opposite the opening image. This is your chance to show that the change has occurred. So whatever you did in the opening image, you should try to do the opposite here. In Harry Potter, of course, part of the opening image is Harry being abused by the Dursleys and feeling horrible in his own home. And the closing image of Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone is Harry saying, "I'm not going home, not really," because now Hogwarts is his home and he's not scared of going home to the Dursleys anymore because he knows that there's this magical world where he feels like he belongs. So those are the 5 beats of the beat sheet method. I hope this was helpful to you. I tried my best to explain them in the best way I can. It's not always easy. It always depends on what kind of story you're trying to tell. I will leave useful links in the description box below, and of course I will leave a link to the actual book that you can buy and read. I also wanted to show you the way I visualize this beat sheet method. This is the board that I'm using for the second book that I'm writing, and I'm almost finished drafting it. I don't know if you can see this at all, but it's a corkboard with all of the main beats, so all the titles of the main beats, and then a post-it note explaining in general what should happen in that section. So I keep this above my desk so that when I'm writing, I always see it and I always know what I'm supposed to write next. But honestly guys, I think this is a great way to organize your story. It also helps you come up with better ideas for your story, and it guides you for good storytelling in general. Try out this method, see if it works for you. If it doesn't, that's completely fine. But I have found it so much easier writing this draft compared to writing my first book because of using the beat sheet method. It's so easy and it's so much faster. If you're new to my channel, please remember to like and subscribe. I make videos every Monday. But that's it guys, I will see you next time. So much dust!